The yard at Pelican Bay was chaos. Sirens screamed, boots pounded the ground, and a Saul rolled over the razor wire like a ghost. Inmates shouted, fists flew, and guards yelled for everyone to get down. But nobody listened. Not this time. Marcus Slim Taylor stood in the middle of the storm, his chest rising fast, his hands bleeding. Across from him was Hector Diaz, leader of the Norteños, tall, tattooed, and furious. They had been circling each other all morning, two storms about to collide. "Drop it, Slim," a guard barked from the tower, his rifle aimed straight down. But Slim didn't drop anything. He didn't even blink. Around him, inmates were backing away, forming a ring. Everyone knew what was coming. Hector took a slow step forward, his eyes locked on Slim. "You talk too much," he said, voice low and sharp. Then he lunged. The two men crashed into each other, grunting and swinging. Shouts turned into roars. Someone yelled, "They're going for it!" and the crowd exploded. A gunshot cracked the air, a warning shot from the tower. Dust puffed up from the ground, and the noise froze everyone for half a second. Then the riot erupted again. Guards charged in with shields and batons. They slammed men to the ground, shouting commands over the sirens. Slim tried to fight Hector off, but two guards grabbed him, forcing his face against the concrete. Blood mixed with dirt under his cheek. He could smell the metal of the cuffs before they snapped shut around his wrists. "Lock it down!" a voice thundered through the loudspeaker. "Lock it all down!" One by one, inmates dropped to their knees, hands behind their heads. The yard was a sea of bodies and shouts. Slim struggled to breathe as a guard pushed a knee into his back. Then, through the ringing in his ears, he heard another voice. Calm, distant, almost like an echo. "Take him to the SHU. The words hit him harder than the concrete. The SHU, the security housing unit. Every inmate knew the stories. Men locked alone for years, talking to the walls, losing their minds. Slim looked up through the gig as the guards dragged him away. On the other side of the fence, he saw Hector too, beaten, coughing, but smirking. The last thing Slim heard before they pulled him through the gates was Hector's voice, cold and steady. "You'll see what's real now." As the steel doors slammed shut behind him, Slim didn't know it yet, but the myths he'd laughed at were about to become his reality. Slim sat on the edge of a concrete bunk, staring at the gray wall in front of him. His new world was silent. No voices, no sound of footsteps, not even the clank of doors. Just silence. Thick, heavy silence. He was now in the security housing unit, the SHU. The place every inmate feared most. Here you didn't see faces, you didn't hear names. You existed in a box. Every 24 hours felt the same. A metal slot opened in the door, a tray slid through, then it slammed shut again. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, all tasted like nothing. Slim lost track of time. Maybe days passed, maybe weeks. At first, he told himself he could handle it. He'd done time before, but this was different. The quiet wasn't just quiet, it was alive. On the 5th day, he started hearing whispers, soft, distant voices that seemed to crawl through the walls. He pressed his ear against the concrete and heard tapping. 3 short knocks, then silence. He tapped back, once, twice. Then a voice, rough and low, came through the vent. "You Slim Taylor," Slim froze. "Who's asking?" "Someone who knows why you're here." The voice faded. Slim leaned closer, heart pounding. "Wait, what do you mean?" No answer. Later that night, as he tried to sleep, he noticed a folded paper on the floor, a note that must have been slid under his door. It said only 4 words. "They're watching. Stay quiet." Slim's stomach tightened. Who was watching? The guards? The inmates? Both? He looked up at the black camera in the corner of the cell. Its tiny red light blinked once, then stayed solid. The next morning, 2 guards came for him. "Taylor, let's go." They cuffed him tight, covered his head with a black hood, and led him through echoing hallways that smelled of bleach and fear. When they finally stopped, the hood came off. He was in a white room, plain walls, a metal table, 2 chairs across from him sat a man in a suit. No badge, no name tag, just a cold stare. "Marcus Taylor," the man said quietly. "You've been in some trouble." Slim said nothing. The man slid a photograph across the table. It showed Hector Diaz, alive, bandaged, sitting in the prison infirmary. Behind him stood a guard, handing him a small folded note. Slim blinked. "What is this?" The man leaned forward. "You tell me. You've been in Pelican Bay long enough to know not everything here is what it seems." Slim's voice cracked. "So, what's really going on?" The man smiled faintly. "You're asking the wrong question." He tapped the photo once. "Ask yourself why Hector's still breathing." Before Slim could speak, the guards grabbed him again, pulling him from the room. The last thing he saw was that man's cold smile and the photograph sliding back into his briefcase. As they dragged him down the hallway, Slim heard something that froze his blood. From deep inside another corridor came the faint echo of Hector's voice, calm, steady, and laughing. The laughter haunted Slim all night. He lay on the cold bunk, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Every few minutes the vent rattled, and he swore he could hear whispering again, words he couldn't quite catch. He thought about the photo. Hector alive, a guard passing him a note, the man in the suit saying, "Ask why Hector's still breathing." None of it made sense. Unless someone wanted them to fight. By morning, Slim had made up his mind. He wasn't going to sit quietly anymore. When the guards opened the slot for breakfast, he slid the untouched tray back. "I need to talk to the warden," he said. The guard's eyes narrowed. "Not how it works, Taylor." "Then tell whoever's watching the cameras that I'm done playing," Slim said. The guard stared at him for a long moment, then walked away. Hours later, his door buzzed open. "Yard time," a voice said. Slim hadn't been outside in weeks. The sky was pale gray, fog hanging over the walls. The yard was empty except for one figure standing near the far corner, Hector Diaz. Slim's chest tightened. He looked around. No guards, no towers moving, just silence. Hector smiled faintly. "Told you we'd meet again." Slim stepped forward slowly. "What's going on, Hector? Why'd they show me that picture? Why are you still alive?" Hector shrugged. "Because I know things, and they need me to keep quiet." "Who's they?" Slim demanded. Hector pointed toward the cameras on the wall. "Them, the system. The people who run Pelican Bay don't just guard us. They study us. They feed the gangs, then shut us down to keep control. You think they don't know what happens in the Seichu? They make it happen." Slim's jaw clenched. "You expect me to believe that?" "Believe whatever you want," Hector said softly. "But think about it. You and I fight. They send us here, and suddenly we're quiet. No more noise in the yard, no more chaos. Just Contra. All." A loud buzz broke the moment. The tower siren, sharper this time, but the gates didn't open. Hector's face changed. "That's not yard recall," he muttered. Suddenly, alarms erupted across the prison. The ground trembled. Voices shouted through intercoms. From somewhere deep inside the building came the heavy thud of doors slamming shut, one after another. Slim looked around, heart pounding. "What's happening?" Hector didn't answer. He was staring up at the tower. The guards were gone. The windows were dark. Then, all at once, the lights across the yard flickered and went out. The 2 men stood in silence, surrounded by fog. Only the faint hum of generators echoed from below. "Looks like the myths were right," Hector said quietly. There's a part of this prison no one talks about, and I think they just opened it." From behind the walls came a deep metallic groan, like something massive unlocking. Slim took a step back. "You're telling me—" Before he could finish, the ground lights burst back on, flooding the yard in white glare. Guards swarmed through the gates, shouting orders. "On the ground, now!" Slim dropped to his knees. But as he looked up, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The guard leading the charge, the one shouting commands, was the same man from the interrogation room. The man in the suit. He wasn't a visitor. He wasn't an investigator. He worked here. Their eyes met for a split second. The man gave the smallest nod, as if to say, "Stay quiet," then turned away. Hector leaned close, whispering under his breath, "Now you know who runs Pelican Bay." Slim said nothing. He just stared at the concrete ground, hearing the sirens fade and the door slam again behind him. Later that night, back in his cell, a new note slid under the door, the same handwriting as before. "You've seen the truth. Don't speak of it." Slim sat there for a long time, staring at the paper. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear the wind howling against the walls of Pelican Bay. Or maybe it was just the prison breathing. For the first time, he understood what every inmate meant when they said this place had its own mind. The myths were never lies. They were warnings. And Slim now lived inside one,